Does anybody have any questions? Can I ask for questions, or do I wait till Rich? Does anybody have any questions for me about what we do? I don't know if that was clear. Yeah. So again, we're a non-regulatory agency. We do. Oh. She said, what about illegal water lines, folks that have been, I'm assuming you're talking about drawing from a stream? They have a, oh, that would be way beyond my expertise. So she's asking about big basin water and illegal potential draws, I guess, from the stream. This groundwater, just their lines. Got it. Okay, that's something I would say I would go to the county for that. Again, we're a non-regulatory agency, so we don't do any type of enforcement. We don't take complaints from folks like that, but that's certainly something you can do. One thing we do, for folks that actually need permits for anything that is in the riparian area or in a stream bank, we do help people get those. We have a consolidated permit program, so a lot of things that you do on your property are already permitted through our program. We are trying to get that extended for folks that want to do stuff really quickly this year before the winter rains. That's another option of something we might be able to help you with through that process if that's something folks choose to do. And I'm sorry I don't have the answer for that because we don't do any regulatory stuff. Yes?
What about reseeding the soil?
That's a really good question. So a lot of people are asking us about reseeding. I would start by saying the majority of the time you might not want to put anything down. We recommend highly against using the Santa Cruz erosion control mix. It has some really invasive species in it, and we have a handout about it. We recommend using annual sterile things like barley and wheat. You can still get invasives there, but most of the areas that are burned are close to wildland areas, and we don't want to be, introducing invasive species that are going to outcompete other species there that actually might be more fire resistant and things like that. So, go ahead.
Do you have a recommended mix?
There's one that we're looking at right now. We're just looking at the seed source. There is one that looks like it's pretty good that might be available at San Lorenzo Lumber right now. It's called the San Lorenzo Valley Seed Mix, and it has a couple annuals that might be good for erosion control. The issue with erosion control is you want stuff that's going to come up right away and have some fairly deep roots. We really recommend mulching depending upon the slope on your property. You can do wood chips, just keep them away, probably between 10 and 30 feet away from your home if your home is still standing. But mulch is a great thing. We're looking at we have a chipping program where we could come in and look at downed wood that's on your property and chip that material and leave it on site as some mulch. The steeper your slope gets, there are different options using jute netting. We have information on how to properly install that. Core fiber rolls are another option on steeper slopes. It's just making sure they're installed properly. Sorry. Ryegrass? A sterile rye, and Rich is much more of an expert at the seeding recommendation, so I'll let him talk to that, but sterile rye is an option that we use often. It just post-construction, typical post-construction stuff. I would say you can get a false sense of hope because that stuff, especially if you have a slope thinking that initial annual grass is going to prevent a slide, so and everything is so site specific. If you can get someone out there to look at your specific situation, I highly recommend it. But just don't, if you just throw that out there and walk away, that could be a dangerous situation. Anybody else? I can let Rich talk. He'll talk more about actual specifics for erosion control.
Okay.
Excellent. Thank you guys so much.
Hi, good morning. My name's Drew Mather, and I work in the same office as Angie Grice in the Resource Conservation District. I work for the Natural Resources Conservation Service, so we're a federal agency that works in concert with the Conservation District, which is a special district within your county here in Santa Cruz County. Rich Cassell used to be the supervisor there in the Capitola office where I'm currently working, and my supervisor, Whit Haraguchi, has a newborn. They had to evacuate, and so he couldn't be here today, so I'm in his place. So Whit sends his
it's going up.
sympathies and empathies to all of you here today. I know you've been through a tremendous amount these last few weeks. I just wanted to say really quick, our agency, the Natural Resources Conservation Service, grew up essentially with the conservation districts. We were partnered from the beginning about 80 plus years ago, and your tax dollars pay for us to come out and do site-specific information about the seeding issues that you just brought up. And Rich Cassell has a tremendous amount of experience doing post-fire recovery efforts, and I want to yield most of my time to him. I have business cards. They'll be at the station over there with the Conservation District. Be happy to speak with anybody who has issues about their properties. We come out and we'll schedule time to do a one-on-one visit with you. We can bring engineers, erosion control specialists like Angie mentioned, and also engineers, biologists, geologists. That's the beauty of your tax dollars paying for the Natural Resources Conservation Service, that we're trying to get conservation practices on the land to try to prevent erosion and water quality impacts, everything that you're dealing with right now. So thank you for coming. Thank you for your resilience, and hang in there. We're here with you to try to get through this all together. Thanks.
Good morning, everyone, and I'm so sorry for the losses that you so sorry for the losses that you've sustained, whether it's your home or your property burned, or maybe you're even a little bit outside the fire area, but you're still concerned about runoff and flooding and other issues that might impact your property this winter. As Drew and as Angie said, my name is Rich Cassell. I'm a certified professional erosion and sediment control specialist and have been for nearly 40 years. I worked here as a district conservationist for the USDA Natural Resources Conservation Service for nearly 45 years. Most of that time all here in Santa Cruz and San Mateo counties. I'm a field conservationist and worker, so I've been on thousands of properties over the course of my career, visiting many homes and properties in the San Lorenzo Valley and in Scotts Valley in that time, following everything from the '82 storm disaster to the earthquake of 1989 to all the other storm disasters and fire disasters we've had in Santa Cruz County. I retired about 3 years ago, but as soon as I retired, NRCS hired me back as a post-fire restoration specialist, and I've been working every fire in California ever since. So whether it's Southern California and Wine Country, Kincaid Fire last year, Big Sur in 2016, and now all the fires this year. I'm going to try and spread myself as thin as I can, but I'm here really to help you understand what happens following fire. One of my biggest first take-home messages is for not you to be your own worst enemy, and to understand the effect that fire has on the landscape. There's actually good things and obviously bad things that fire does in the landscape, but for the good things that fire does in the landscape, we don't want to jump to the chase and interrupt some of the natural processes in place. That's why it's so important to have a site assessment done, so you know where you stand and where you should go forward with an erosion control strategy. Or maybe we just sit back and wait on nature and everything in between. I've developed quite a bit of information over the years. A lot of that has been updated in the last couple of years. Most of all the handouts the NRCS provides in California, I either co-wrote or authored. So you're kind of lucky, I guess, that I live here in Santa Cruz County, being kind of a state specialist for the agency in this field, and with all the on-ground experience I've had working with people one-on-one. Without getting into a whole lot of detail, and I'm sure all of you have your own site-specific questions. I did bring a handout. I only brought one because I only learned about this meeting last night. So I'm lucky I was able to make it. But I have a top 10 list for you to consider. The first is obviously to get help from organizations like NRCS and the Resource Conservation District, but other professionals that are certified or registered or licensed before selecting or installing a measure on your property. And I have to say that there are a lot of well-intended advisors out there, some of them with credentials and some of them without. There are a lot that may be opportunists, for lack of better terms, and some people that come from outside of the area that, yeah, they want to help, but they also want to make money. And I could tell you just horror stories about what I've seen following fire. And you know, you've already gone through some terrible things with what's happened personally that we don't need to have you be taken advantage of by maybe so-called erosion control specialists, or even for that matter, so-called erosion control contractors that, like I said, they may know these practices, but you know, they don't always apply universally to every single property. It's a very site-specific call. So working with good information right up front helps you do the right thing up front. I like to get out in front early in the process, because if the wrong thing gets placed on the landscape, then people have a tendency to copy what their neighbor's doing, or copy what they see as they drive down the road. And oftentimes early on, if that's the wrong thing, it just gets copied over and over again throughout the landscape, and we don't want that. You know, using straw wattles is good, but I see in most cases they're either not installed correctly, they're not needed, and in some cases they might even create a new problem. So just throwing them out on the landscape and calling it good is not something we would advise. The same holds true with a lot of erosion control products like jute netting and erosion control blankets, and hydromulching and seeding. And these practices are very site specific, and they don't apply to every person's situation. There is a place for all of them, don't get me wrong, but it's very site specific call. You all, you know, have a certain amount of time and whatever money you have left over after the losses that you've sustained, and effort, and you want to put that to its best use right now. So I'm saying let's try and respect the laws of nature, thinking that nature is our first best management practice. One of the things about fire is that in many cases there's a seed bank in the soil. It's a resident seed bank that's waiting to regenerate following fire. Unless the fire burned really hot and you have white ash all over the place, a lot of the seed may be there. Some fire following plants will come up. If I had the ability to show you a slideshow right now, I can show you what?
I was just going to say,
Oh, wrap it
and
up.
then really quickly,
Okay.
you said slideshow, that's the perfect introduction. We have 4 online different topics, webinars that we'll have. They're an hour each. They're going to start, I believe, on Friday, and one of them is Rich speaking and going through a lot of pictures showing you, can you hear me?
Can you go to the mic, please, so we can?
Oh, sorry. We have 4 different webinars that are covering 4 different topics. One of them will be erosion and sediment control. One of them is forest regeneration and hazard trees. The other one is just the stuff that Rich is talking about. There'll be slideshows. If you get on our mailing list, we'll send those out. They're going to start on Friday. They will also be recorded if you can't be there for the live one. It's probably about a 30-minute presentation with a whole bunch of time for questions. And then there's one, stream care. And I think those will be really important. You'll be able to hear people's questions. And I know that we have a lot of other speakers here that are waiting to speak. And then we have 2 more pieces, or 2 more sessions this afternoon. And so if you sign up for our thing, you can get Rich's information as well. So I don't know if you have any more questions, or Ronnie?
My question is, the evaluation you're talking about, the site-specific evaluation required for moving forward through your rebuilding permit process.
Ours is, yeah, is our site visit one of the required site visits going through the rebuilding process? Ours is not. I believe some of the required ones have to do with looking at your septic system, etc. So I can't speak to that, but certainly the county is referring people to us that have any type of erosion concern on their property. If it's a mass landslide, we'll probably come out, look at the situation, analyze that, and refer you to a geologist or a certified, like a geotechnical engineer if we don't have the expertise. But we have really good on the ground experience to at least refer you to the places that you need to go. But this is not a required one. All of our work is voluntary. But I think a lot of folks are asking about erosion control, not only to protect their own property, but to protect the watershed in which we get our water supply from, and fisheries, etc. So, thank you so much, Ronnie. Okay.
We have a good microphone wiper manager over here. So, wildfires can cause everything from major fire damage to structures to water damage caused by firefighters trying to save a property, as well as smoke and soot damage, which most of you have experienced, and strong lingering smoke odors. Our next speaker is Brent Calvin from Disaster Cleanup Specialists. And Jesse. Disaster Cleanup Specialist is a premier 3-county restoration and mitigation company that can quickly and efficiently help restore fire-damaged structures to their original pre-loss condition. Brett? Jesse?
Come on in.
And I just want to say, if anyone has any questions, come up as close as you can so that they can hear your questions, and then if you can repeat the question so the people watching the stream can hear the question. We don't want to give a microphone out to the audience because of COVID, so we're limiting that. That's the reason. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Brent. Do we have a mic?
Into the microphone.
Hi, I'm Brent Calvin with Disaster Cleanup Specialists. Again, like everybody else, we're so sorry about your losses and hope that everything works out for you. We're here for you. We're a Disaster Cleanup Specialists, restoration and mitigation company, can handle, as they mentioned, everything from smoke to water damage, mold, asbestos, every other type of disaster situation. This is Megan and Jesse Lizama is our senior project manager, and he's the one who is expert in what you need. So I'll introduce Jesse to take a look.
That's the fire truck. Hold on for the fire truck. Yes. I know. I was too slow to get him.
Well, there's quite a few of them gone.
I know. Give him a minute. Sorry.
Okay.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for coming out. First of all, I'd like to say my heart and prayers are out to all the people that lost their homes, and people that are been disrupted from their homes, people that have been evacuated from their homes and now are going back to their homes. So I know there's a lot of stress involved with that, and my heart and prayers are out to you guys. Again, my name is Jesse Lizama. I'm the senior project manager for Disaster Cleanup. The company's been around for about 40 years. I've been doing this for about going on 30 years. And I specialize in the fire, water, smoke, environmental, and hazardous material division. So basically, I'm out here just to let you guys know that if you have smoke damage to your house, it can be cleaned and deodorized. There's a lot of things to think about. One is your indoor air quality. Due to you guys being away from your homes, coming back to your homes, you walk into your homes, you smell a lot of odor, smoke odor in your homes. It may not even look like you have soot or anything in the home, but you do have a air quality issue with your home. So we offer services for that. I'm not here to sell anything. I do have a booth over there that later on, if you guys want to come by and talk to me about it, we can do that. Just a little more history about disaster cleanup and what I've been doing. I've been around when they had the Partington Ridge fires over in Big Sur. We did like 43 homes out there that had fire retardant sprayed on their homes, smoke into their property, and somehow properties that unfortunately burned down. We were there around. I was around for the '95 Carmel floods, which we did another about 50, 60 homes out there. People just lost their entire homes, flooded out, and then of course now we're dealing with the wildfires here across the state of California. We're also, a biohazard company. We've been doing COVID cleanups for the last 3 months. Our guys are all trained in PPE. We all cross-train in different areas of the health and safety. So we do a variety of different things for our community. So basically, again, I just want to have the moment to talk to you guys. If you guys have issues or concerns about anything in your property, or if you have some fire damage to your property, I'll be more than happy to answer some questions, advise you on what needs to be done, or recommendations. There's a lot of other restoration companies out there, so there should be enough people to handle the workload that's here. Again, my heart and sympathies out to everybody that lost their homes and are dealing with it right now. I will take a few minutes to answer any questions, or I can do that at my booth, whichever you prefer. Good.
No cleanup questions? Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. They're in their disaster cleanup specialist booth up there. I'm looking for our next speaker. Randy Reynolds, are you here? Oh, there you are. I didn't see you. Sorry. So our next speaker is a longtime professional associate of mine, Randy Reynolds. Randy is a CPA and founder of Reynolds Group, a tax consulting firm here in Scotts Valley. And Randy will address the IRS and Franchise Tax Board tax considerations, potential disaster write-offs, as well as the tax implications of accepting insurance and or mortgage payouts.
That's a lot of words.
I know. Do everybody understand that? You go.
Okay. This one good? I can come off and say Hello everybody. I recommend, or get a little closer. Sound better? Okay. So with everybody else saying they're sorry for what happened, as do I can understand from a different perspective. I have a number of clients that were caught up there, and I've been fielding questions from them already. And there's a lot of confusion and a lot of items that you have to go through and process and things. So I'm here to give you a bit of information along those lines to hopefully make it a bit easier. So hopefully you've got insurance. Insurance proceeds come out, and you have up to answer your question, for IRS purposes, usually 2 years, but because it's a presidentially declared disaster area, you have 4 years with when to use that money to rebuild. So 4 years to rebuild. 4 years to rebuild. So county 10 years, whatever. But for IRS, it'll be 4 this time. Okay. And then so as we talk about, and jokingly, our county, how quickly can they process things through? It's IRS gives you 4 years. If you can go through and keep a diary as to what's occurring, they will be lenient when it comes down to giving you extensions. So if it takes 6 years to complete the process, as long as you've kept a diary, we ask for specific extension requests from district directors. They will grant them. They want to see you get on. They do not want to sit there and enforce a penalty against you. Okay? So the big overriding thing is that if you receive insurance proceeds, you need to use that money to either rebuild your house or repurchase another house. So and as long as either of those occur, it's not taxable. If you take the insurance proceeds and you don't do anything, it's like you sold your house for whatever the insurance company gave you. So it could be a taxable situation at that point. There's a neat thing. It's called a 1033 exchange, if you will. It's a provision that allows you to do an involuntary conversion, which is what would have happened here. So you can take your house, which you typically can't do. You can take the money you receive from insurance, move to another area, and repurchase a house. That usually doesn't happen with primary residences. You can also do it with the rental property, which you can do a 1031 exchange with, but now you have 4 years with which to do it instead of 180 days. So that might, if you have a rental property, it might really free you up to do something else. If you don't have insurance, Then we're looking at something called a casualty loss, which is an itemized deduction. So if you take a standard deduction, you're kind of in trouble. But you can have, I'm sorry, you're going to lose some of it. But if you have enough to itemize, you will. It has to go over 10% of your income, your AGI. So you're going to lose that portion of it. And then you get to write off the lesser of, the decrease in fair market value right before the fire and right after. So if your house is worth $1 million before the fire and 200 grand after, then you have an $800,000 loss. So you have $800,000 loss, but if you bought the house for $500,000, you get the lesser of the two, so you have a $500,000 casualty loss. So you don't get the big number, and I'm going to recommend you get appraisals on the back end of what value the property is worth afterwards. So something I have not heard mentioned yet, and is in my research, IRS has referenced it, and in one of a couple areas, there's something out there called a public adjuster, which is an adjuster. It's not really my area because it's more of an insurance thing, but there's adjusters out there that represent you as a person to go up with, against, and argue with the insurance company's adjuster who's looking out for the insurance company's best interests. So I've read over and over again, they're outside parties, they charge their own fee, somewhere between like 5 and 15% of the settlement. But if you look at what they can get for you, and it's just interview and talk to them, but oftentimes they can really increase your settlement from the insurance company. And there's a website I came across called United Policyholders. It is uphelp.org, uphelp.org, and it helps policyholders deal with the insurance companies, and that's a free site, and some of these references come off of there as well. And then just one last thing to put out there is that there are special issues with trees if you have timberland on your land. I'm just going to throw it out there that you probably want to talk to somebody if those are gone or you wind up with logging proceeds. I had a client a couple years ago at the fire up north, lost a bunch of trees. It was just investment property for them. They had the property logged, and they got 100 to actually more, 250,000 or something for the lumber, but which was typically income to them because they sold a product. But they were able to get it reforested, and as long as they spent the proceeds from the mill on reforesting their land, they were able to deduct that, and they wind up without paying taxes and got to rebuild their land. So a couple of basic things. Yes?
What did you say, UP help.org?
So the website he's asking for is uphelp.org. It's uphelp.org. ORG, yes. Yeah.
Okay, so you were saying that the money that the insurance company gives you to rebuild the house won't be taxable if you spend it on that house or something similar.
Correct.
What about the money they give you to replace all your possessions? Do I have to go out and buy all those possessions again?
Nope. That's basically reimbursement for what you lost.
Right.
You didn't sell it. It's a personal issue, not a sale of a home.
Okay, so that stuff is completely untouchable by the feds.
How is yours going?
Cool.
Is it going okay?
On mine, I lost connection for a little bit, and I
Yeah.
had to finish and then restart. I
Okay.
couldn't upload the
What
video
kind
because
of
it was
write-offs
too
are
long of a
available
video.
for
Yeah,
people
that's
who
why
didn't lose their
that's why I
home
just
but might have
mine
had
dropped
smoke
too,
damage
but it
or
was my fault.
evacuation expenses that were not reimbursed
I'll,
by their insurance company, or they were evacuated
You can
longer
put a note
than
in
their
there.
policy
Yes,
period reimbursed them for? Are those deductible expenses?
For the pamphlet, for people that talk.
You make me think on that one.
Presenters
You would have-
information.
I'd have to think about it be classified if anything as a casualty loss, at which point it would go and have to exceed 10% of your income. So if you're making 50 grand, you have to have more than 5 grand of it. So I think it's probably not going to be very applicable. And that's also going to be an itemized deduction. So if you're making 50 grand, you're probably taking a standard deduction, which is 12. So you have to exceed 12 plus. It's probably not going to be deductible, but it could be. Or if you're trying to compute the casualty loss because you're already going to qualify, you can add those numbers on top of that, I would suggest. I'd have to look up specifically though.
Are people going to be 1099 from their insurance companies for the evacuation expenses for hotels that they received?
I can't tell you. I have never seen one in 25 years. I would think not, because it's in form of like a reimbursement, like if you get reimbursed by your employer, you're not going to pay on your payroll stub or your 1099 because your employer reimbursed you for something. So I think it probably will not be 1099s. And I don't think insurance proceeds are 1099 typically either. So if they give you a check for 600 grand, I don't think it's reported to anybody.
And because of all the background noise, I'd like you to repeat one more time about accepting a mortgage settlement with your mortgage company. I don't know exactly how that happens. It comes from your insurance company and you pay that money to the mortgage company. How does that go?
That would basically be a reduction what the insurance proceeds are. So if they give you 800 and you owe the mortgage company 500, then you still have to build the house for 800. You can't walk away with extra than what you started with.
What about people who don't want to rebuild? They just decide that they're going to move to Nevada and sell their lot.
Then whatever you get from the insurance proceeds is the sales price of that home. So again, if you bought it for 500 and they gave you 800, then you pay tax on 300. But that could also get out to your primary residence exclusion, which is 250 per person or 500,000. So you could theoretically get out of that without a tax issue. So I should say that most issues around here would not result in a tax bill if done properly.
And when the lot is sold to the investors that are pouring into the county to buy those parcels and rebuild until they find out about Santa Cruz County. Sorry about that. So what would happen with the proceeds from the sale of the land? Is that all one big giant transaction?
Yeah, so you take the proceeds of the land and the insurance proceeds, back out what you got reimbursed for personal possessions, where that question came from. So that is pulled back out, so you identify when you get the insurance settlement, how much was for my house and land, how much was for my stuff. Okay, so we skip that, but the land and the insurance proceeds get added together. And then you sold your house for that much.
Okay.
So your primary exclusion might count, or if you go to Nevada and buy a house, that would also count.
Okay, but the insurance company is going to pay out probably now, and 5 years from now when you finally sell the vacant land, in the meantime, you got to have done something with that insurance money, right? How can it all be one transaction?
In most cases, it'll be one transaction. There's going to be exceptions to everything all the time, which is what makes my job a lot of fun. So it's by facts and circumstance and how much that lot actually sells for, or when the insurance settlement comes out. You have 4 years. So we can kind of wait that entire time period to figure out what happens.
Okay. So if it goes past the 4 years, then you got to get creative or something.
Then I would probably go in there, and I've already talked to the other CPA that works for me, and kind of, like in a rental property, you have land and structure. I would probably go in there and figure, okay, let's just go ahead and bifurcate it, like, 40% structure, 60% land, break it out. Here's my structure, here's my insurance proceeds, here's the land that I sold a year afterwards, and here's it.
Okay.
But it also kind of gets into that thing that, where the IRS will give you past that 4 years, if you're keeping like kind of a diary and ask for an extension, I couldn't get it all done.
Right.
I mean, so it really depends.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
Thanks, Randy. That was awesome.
So now we come to our last, actually our second to the last bit of discussion, and that is regarding insurance. It's such a big, huge, wild, intensely regulated, intensely debated topic these days when you have widespread damage event. There's wild rumors and everybody saying what their policy covers, and that's the absolute end of the story. The first thing I want to say is everybody's insurance policy is different. They have different limits, they have different policies. So do not go with anything that you read on Facebook. You need to communicate with your own insurance agent and with your own policy specifics. And Randy did mention United Policyholders. This is an amazing website that's got tons and tons of resources to assist you. It's a nonprofit organization, and their mission is to help you. Their mission is to be trustworthy and useful information. Their website, uphelp.org, once again, is just full of instructional videos, sample letters, experts in finance, construction, and the law. So check that out. I want to take a minute and introduce Jordan Bergstrom. Jordan, where are you running around? He's got a black shirt. Oh, there he is in the back with the black shirt and the black mask. Jordan is from JW Insurance Agency, and he's an independent insurance agent that writes for multiple national insurance companies. He is not able to speak publicly. Funny, that's the third one, not able to speak publicly, but he's available to meet with you personally about your insurance situation. Obviously, he's not going to be able to solve your problems with negotiating with your insurance company, but he can talk to you if you've had cancellation of your insurance that you received prior to the event. He can talk to you about your options for obtaining insurance with a different national insurer. Does that cover it, Jordan? Is there something else? Okay, so Jordan's available if you want to talk to him about insurance. He's your guy. And then also, Randy mentioned the public adjusters, and we happen to have them here. And we have Reno Benanate from Greenspan Public Insurance Adjusters, and he's going to talk to you about what a public insurance adjuster does and what the process is and what the benefits are for you. There you go. Oh, and Ken Crown.
Hang on, give me a second. You want to use this one? Yeah, let your phone. Yep, okay.
Hi everybody, my name is Reno Benanati, and this is Ken Crown. We're with the Greenspan Company Adjusters International. We are licensed by the Department of Insurance from state to state, and we're known as public adjusters, public advocates, private adjusters. Just a little background real quickly. As a firm, we have been in business since the 1940s. I have been a public advocate for 24 years of my life. I was also a fire victim a year before that, so 25 years ago. So I've been in those shoes. It's not fun. Ken has been doing it for 35 years. So between the two of us, there's almost 60 years of experience. We have been involved in all the latest firestorms in recent California history. We're very versed in how these play out, how the insurance companies proceed, why they bring in all these out-of-state people. And so we're, first of all, I want to say we're not here to sell anything. We're here as a resource. And we're here to answer hard questions that you can't normally ask the adjuster for fear of maybe giving up a benefit that you otherwise might be entitled to. So, feel free to ask away. We love questions. I've been involved in a lot of webinars as of late, and we're getting a lot of very positive feedback. The reason we exist as public adjusters is to level the playing field between the insurance company adjusters and you, people who have never had a claim before. You're suddenly thrust in the world of insurance. Now you have to deal with a 60 to 80 page contract, which was a policy, it's now a contract, and you don't know how to navigate it. So what we do is we kind of dispel a lot of the myths, help you get through it, and help you navigate through the questions and all the spinning plates that happen. So the way the policy breaks down real quickly, I'm going to try to make it brief because we can talk forever about insurance and how it applies. Your policies have 4 buckets of coverage, and they're listed typically on your policies as A, B, C, and D. And A is the dwelling. That's your big meat and potatoes portion. B is other structures, anything that's detached from the dwelling. C is your personal property, and D is the loss of use. Now, before I get into that, I think it's important for you to order a certified copy of the policy. The policy is the rule book, guys, and if you don't have the rule book, you're not in the game, period. The adjusters from the insurance company may cite certain things in the policy, and if you don't have a place to reference it, you're going to be at a disadvantage. So it's very important to get a certified copy. Ken's going to explain bucket A. We'll try to go through all 4 buckets quickly. And again, if we're breezing over stuff and you have questions, we can take inbound calls. We cannot approach you. There's a moratorium on us, which is rightfully so. But we can take inbound calls and questions. So Ken's going to talk about the nuances of bucket A, which is your dwelling. That's your big dollars. Ken?
Yes. So dwelling coverage insures the dwelling and any attached decks or fences. A lot of you have septic systems and well systems, and the question comes up, is that a dwelling or is that a separate structure? Typically, we consider it part of the dwelling because it's used to service the dwelling. It really depends, though, on your coverage amount. Sometimes it may be better to have it considered a separate structure. Within the dwelling, which again, it ensures anything that's attached to it, so any mounted TV brackets, anything that's attached to the walls, that's part of the dwelling. Within that dwelling limit, and you may be concerned, maybe you don't have enough coverage, there are extensions. One thing that's out there and most people have is called extended replacement costs. It may give you an additional 25% or an additional 50% of coverage. So if you're insured for $500,000 and you have 50% extended replacement coverage, you're actually insured for $750,000. The other coverage to be aware of, that's a percentage of the dwelling amount, is building code upgrades. That pays for the increased cost of construction to make that building code compliant. If you have to go back with sprinklers, it pays for that. If you're required to have solar, it pays for that. LED lighting, upgraded foundations, but be aware it's the incremental increase. They owe you for the foundation you had, but if you have to have deeper footings, more rebar, that's the portion that falls under the building code upgrades. And usually it's either 10 or 25% of the amount of the dwelling limit. Some policies even give you 50%.
Yeah, so you know, understanding how the policy responds to your losses is critical. For those of you that have smoke losses, you know, talk to the restoration company, understand how they go about cleaning. It is critical to be as educated and proactive as possible. Understand the dialogue you're going to have with the adjusters. I also want to mention before we get to bucket B, and we'll take questions certainly, is that you may have out-of-state adjusters, and it is pretty common in these firestorms for the insurance company to keep switching adjusters. You may have one adjuster, two adjusters, up to 7 adjusters. So this is not uncommon. It is frustrating, but you have to be patient. Be proactive, don't be reactive, don't sit back and expect them to do anything more than have to pay you. You are making a claim to the insurance company. They're not making a claim to you. The word claim, you are claiming. So make the claim, you have to prepare it, you have to present it, and it's negotiable. You'd be naive to think that nothing is negotiable with these insurance companies. Every penny is very negotiable. But not only the building, the other structures, your personal property, your living arrangements, everything is negotiable. So be proactive. I want to get into other structures. That's anything that's detached from the main dwelling, patios, walkways, pools, cabanas, fencing. For those of you that have long driveways that have survived but maybe spalled, have the contractor look at these things. If the heat has wicked up all the moisture out of the concrete, it's going to be rendered brittle and useless. Some people have put plywood, sheets of plywood to salvage driveways that may not have been impacted, because you're going to have all kinds of trucks and cranes up there for the rebuild. That's important. So other structures is typically 10% up to sometimes 20% of coverage A. And again, it'll cover anything that's detached from the main dwelling, retaining walls, fences, etc. And that's how that bucket of coverage works. So again, you have 4 buckets.
Yeah, the only thing I'd add is if you've got driveways that may not be damaged now, you want to look at them after the demolition is done. Yeah, they may end up being damaged. If you have driveways that may be partially damaged, you may have some matching issues. If it's a stamped, color-coded concrete driveway, obviously you're entitled to have what you had before, which was a driveway that matched.
So they owe you for the as-was, 1 minute before the fire plus code. And that's important. Now, you can build the Taj Mahal, folks, if you want. It's up to you what you do with the money. You can also take some of your personal property money and move that into your dwelling bucket to expand the dollars and to offset any shortfalls you may have in either code coverage or the dwelling coverage. We have talked to no less than hundreds of families that have called us to understand how these policies work. So again, please use this as a resource. It's important to have the information at your fingertips. Next bucket of coverage is your personal property. I like to always mention that this one will take years off your life. And the reason for that is it's personal. And all your items that, if you took your house before the fire and you tip it upside down and shook it, whatever falls out would be considered your personal property. And you're required to make a list of everything that was in that. Now, the average home could have anywhere between 2,000 to 3,500 line items of merchandise. And you're required to make that list. Remember, folks, you have to prove to the insurance company what you lost. You don't need the receipts, that's not a requirement, but you do have to make the list. Now, you have to add tax, you have to add delivery, setup, plus warranties. You may have bought an electronic item with a warranty. Don't forget those things. Those are really critical. The goal for you to max out the limit of insurance in that bucket of coverage is to get the numbers legitimately as high as you can at replacement cost, negotiate and minimize the amount of depreciation they're going to take on those items for wear and tear, age, condition, obsolescence, and that bottom number after that depreciation is taken, you want it to be above the limit of insurance. That way they commit to it, and now you get all of your benefits. If you get into the reverse where the numbers fall below that, you're going to have to hand in your receipts when you replace to get depreciation back, because in the state of California, the definition of replacement cost is replacement cost less depreciation equals actual cash value. For example, I'll do a quick example. If you lost a sofa and you're claiming it today it costs today $1,000 to replace, it's subject to depreciation, let's say $200, you're going to get a check for $800. Question is, what happens to my other $200? Well, the insurance company gets to keep it until you replace it. So when you hand in that receipt for $1,000, then they'll get to cut you a check for the $200. That is a cat and mouse game, folks, you don't want to get into. You lose years off your life because it's a losing battle. So it's really important to make the list, count the toothpicks to thumbtacks and everything in between. Take your time, do it right. They like to speed it up, they want to get you off the books. Do you want to mention what the strategy behind the advances are, Kenny?
Yeah, the advance, so carriers are not obligated to issue an advance, but they will. And some carriers will issue 35%, 50%, but be aware that once they issue that advance, you now have a time frame to replace. And I believe, I don't know if it's been extended to 3 years, but it's certainly in the past firestorms, it was 2 years from the time you get that advance. You now have to make a claim within that 2 years for the replacement cost provision. So when you receive that check, you may want to ask for an extension on that 2-year time frame, because some people may not have their homes built in 2 years. It may take them closer to 2.5 or 3 years. And then you run into the situation of buying things, having to store them. So I would ask for that extension. The most important thing I think everyone should be aware of is that actual cash value, which is defined as replacement less depreciation. A lot of the out-of-town adjusters that come in, they're used to depreciating based on age and useful life. An example is you may have a spare bedroom and the furniture in the bedroom may be 15, 18 years old. And the out-of-town adjuster looks at the age and says, well, you know, it's mattress is 20-year life, so we're going to depreciate that 85%, 90%. Well, it's now in California, it's based on use and condition. So you want to make sure that you let the adjuster know that that was a spare bedroom and that my kids moved out of the house when it was only 3 years old, so it should be considered depreciation of 10 or 15%. And that categorization, which is called use and condition, you want to do for all the different items you had in your home. Your formal living room sofa that maybe is hardly ever sat in, it could be 15 or 20 years old. You do the same for your clothes. That way you minimize the depreciation and hopefully get to your limits on the initial claim.
Thank you, Ken. Hope that made sense. I'm going to take 1 minute really quickly. The last bucket of coverage for you is the loss of use. This is the bucket that pays for your temporary housing. This is your most immediate need right now. You either have a time limit, which is 3 years by law. Like for example, a state farm policy gives you 24 months, typically with no dollar limit, but it's extended to 3 years because of legislation that had passed for all these wildfires. Now, the key to this thing is that your standard of living is to remain the same. No more, no less. That's really critical to understand. Standard of living, always remember that. And if it's possible to find what your standard of living is in your temporary home, then you go for that. And for those of you that have a dollar limit in that bucket, really quickly, do the math. Even though legally you have 3 years, if you only have 100 grand in that bucket, you got to stretch that out for as long as you can. That includes the rental of furniture, because you're not going to go out and buy furniture right away, and the rental of the temporary residence. The problem is if you run out of that, if that bucket of coverage, once it's exhausted, it's done. The insurance company's off the hook. And you're going to be paying a mortgage and rent. It can cause some serious distress financially. We'll be happy to take questions. I know we got to wrap it up.
Yeah, we have one more speaker.
And one more speaker coming up. We'll be over here somewhere. Feel free to ask. Go ahead. Wait, we can take some questions now. Yes.
So I have tenants. I abated their rent while they were out. How is that covered for loss of use? Can I claim loss of use for that?
It's a rental property.
Right.
It's loss of rental income.
Okay.
Have they been displaced because of the fire?
Yes.
What was there any physical loss and damage to the property, or just an evacuation order?
Just an evacuation.
Got to look at the policies. Some of the policies, certainly the homeowner policies, a lot of them have 2-week coverage for civil authority, which is what this would fall under. I'm not sure if the renter policies have that. So you want to look under what's called loss of rents coverage, loss of use, fair rental value.
What was the other, civil authority?
Yeah, civil authority, which is what's occurred here, where the government shuts down an area due to a catastrophic event.
Any other questions?
Yeah, you mentioned something about replacement cost provisions.
I can't hear you, sir.
You mentioned something about replacement cost provisions, and there was 3 or 4 years.
So the question was the provision that allows you to collect back the depreciation holdback on your personal property.
Yeah, it's. I know that the last firestorms they gave 2 years. I believe it's been extended even now to 3 years because they have done the same for what's called loss of use, additional living expenses. And I'll get back to you with that question.
Well, you said to ask for extensions, but who do you ask?
Yeah, the adjuster. Verify whether you have 2 years or 3 years from the date of the loss to make claim on a replacement cost basis.
Ask my insurance adjuster, or?
Yes.
Your insurance adjuster.
Yeah, and put everything, by the way, everything you do from now on, you want to put in writing, so you want to send emails. If you have an agreement with the adjuster, you confirm it. If he's going to issue an advance, you confirm it. You want to document the file, because that adjuster, after 2 months, may be leaving, and a new adjuster comes in. And if you don't have a written dialogue and documented conversations, the new adjuster is coming in and says, I don't know anything about that. So you want to be very proactive.
And don't text. Do not text. You want all your communication to be inside the corporate structure of the carrier. Farmers, State Farm, Allstate, Hartford, AAA. You want those emails to go into the adjuster in the corporate system. Texting the adjuster, that stuff can disappear. And if you're trying to make agreements and stuff, it's going to be really difficult. So it's really important. Yes.
Can you copy the text to an email and then keep an email record?
Yeah, you want to basically the goal is to have some kind of documentable dialogue. So if you have a phone call and some kind of phone call arrangement with the adjuster, as soon as you hang up, get on, send the email. My understanding of today's conversation is bullet point, bullet point, bullet point. Please confirm our dialogue. That's all. Now it's there, and so you can always fall back.
Department of Insurance requires carriers to respond to written communication within 15 days.
Yeah. Yeah, so be patient. It's a process. It is not, this is a marathon, folks. It is not a sprint. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
That That was some super great information. Remember, that was Greenspan Public Adjusters. You can reach out to them. They cannot reach out to you. They provide the service of negotiating with your insurance company on your behalf. So our final, last but not least speaker is Andrea Ritter from Red Cross. Red Cross is just moving into phase 2 of what they have available for displaced persons, and she'll speak about that.
Good morning, everyone. So my name is Andrea, and I'm with the American Red Cross, and this is Virginia. She is also here with the American Red Cross. So I just, first I want to just take a moment to say our hearts are with all of you who may have suffered any loss at this time. The Red Cross is out here continuing to provide shelter, comfort, and food at this time. So in the back here, we have our emergency response vehicle and some incredible volunteers out here providing information and resources to all of you. They have some information packets, and inside of these packets are things like county resources, information on FEMA, shelters, locations that are still open. Even if you don't necessarily need somewhere safe to lay your head at night, you are still welcome to come by the shelter to receive food. So breakfast, lunch, and dinner, wraparound services. In addition to clothing, we are not continuing to accept unsolicited donations, but there have been donations previously made for clothing and other items. So come visit us in the back if you want some resources and information in regards to the shelters that continue to remain open. Additionally, we have N95 masks, so while you're out there doing cleanup or returning back to your home, obviously there's still an active fire. And so we want to make sure that you're being protected. So visit us in the back for N95 masks, gloves, sanitizing wipes. You are also welcome to take cases of water home with you or wherever it is that you may be staying. We have snacks. And then these packets, additionally, so Red Cross also does preparedness, right? So, prior to a disaster, we do a lot of preparedness. And these packets, we tell folks to take like a Ziploc bag like this, and we have them in the back for you. And you want to put really pertinent, important documents in these, in like a Ziploc bag, right? So insurance, birth certificate, copy of your birth certificate, etc., and put it in your freezer. That way, all of your documentation remains if your home suffers a fire. So again, you're welcome to take these in the back. And then lastly, I just want to say that the Red Cross continues to provide, as we transition kind of into the next phase, into the recovery phase, we offer disaster health services. So if anyone lost prescription, medication, even prescription eye-seeing glasses, etc., if you had to leave your house very quickly and you still can't return home, or if these things were damaged, if your prescriptions were damaged due to smoke, you can talk with the Red Cross. In these packets, we have the phone number you can call for disaster health services. Same for mental health services. So we provide free counseling, disaster spiritual care, etc. And you can also leave your name and your phone number and your address in the back with our volunteers if you want to hear from a recovery caseworker as you transition into the recovery phase. So our caseworkers can help provide information and resources to help kind of bridge that gap to recovery. So with that being said, come visit us, come talk to us. We'll do the best we can to provide what we have and what we can offer. And if any of you have any questions, I'd be happy to take it at this time. And Virginia, if you have anything to add, please do so.
My name is Virginia Becker, and I'm a volunteer with the Central Coast American Red Cross, which is your Red Cross. And one of the things I've been tasked with today is if anybody could share a story about what's happened to them so far, and particularly if any of our responders have helped you, if the Red Cross has helped you, or a firefighter, or anyone has helped you, we would like to write that down and give credit to those people. This would be the chance. Completely understand if you don't want to talk to me, but is there anybody that would like to share a little bit about their story and what's happened so far?
So we don't have time to do that
I was just gonna say I would
Go to
meet
the
with
back,
you.
yeah.
Right, I would meet with you later. Okay, thank you.
So are you guys, is that it?
That's it. If you have any questions at this time, happy to take your questions.
Don't you have some grants available, or am I?
We do not. So yeah, at this time, leave your name, your phone number, and your information in the back. And as we transition into that next phase, into the recovery phase, that's when our recovery caseworker could reach out to you and kind of determine those next steps and help bridge that gap into recovery.
Thank you. That was amazing. Thank you so much. Okay, well that concludes our program for today. Thank you all for coming. I see little groups nestling around, talking to people that need information on their particular situation. We will be back online at 1 o'clock with this same program. I think we're going to switch it up a little bit. It seemed to me that the most pertinent part was the insurance. I saw lots of people with their notepads out, so I think we're going to allocate a little bit more time to the insurance component next. And thank you so much for coming.
So I don't know, this has been a long